If you're thinking of buying a luxury home here in Fort Lauderdale, this video is for you. In this video, we're going through every stage of the Fort Lauderdale luxury buying process. Pre-approval for jumbo loans, what a competitive offer looks like in this market, what the inspection period actually involves at this price point, and what happens between contract and closing. If you're serious about buying here in the next 6 to 12 months, this is the process map you need before you start. My name is Steve McAleer. I've been selling real estate in Fort Lauderdale for 20 years, completed over 600 transactions in this market, and I work with The Agency, one of the premier luxury brokerages in the country. I want to be specific in this video rather than generic, because a step-by-step guide to the buying process that could apply to any market in any state is not useful for someone buying a $2 million waterfront home in Fort Lauderdale. What I'm giving you here is calibrated to this market, this price point, and the specific realities of a Florida luxury transaction. The first step in the process is getting pre-approved for a jumbo loan. A jumbo loan is any mortgage that exceeds the conforming loan limit. In 2026, that threshold sits at $832,750 for Florida. The majority of Fort Lauderdale luxury purchases that involve financing are jumbo transactions, and the underwriting standards for jumbo loans are meaningfully different from conforming loan standards in ways that out-of-state buyers from markets where they've only dealt with conforming loans are often not prepared for. Jumbo lenders require more documentation, apply more conservative debt-to-income ratios, and have more specific requirements around asset reserves than conforming loan programs. A borrower who sailed through a conforming pre-approval in their home market may encounter a more demanding process when applying for a $1.5 or $3 million jumbo. The assets you need to demonstrate not just for the down payment, but for the reserve requirement that many jumbo programs impose need to be in accessible, documented form. Retirement accounts, investment portfolios, real estate equity all need to be documented in the form that the specific lender requires, and that documentation takes time. The jumbo lender you choose matters as much as the loan program. National banks that handle high-volume, conventional mortgage business sometimes have jumbo programs that are less competitive or less flexible than private banks, wealth management affiliated lenders, or regional lenders who specialize in the Fort Lauderdale luxury market. An experienced Fort Lauderdale luxury agent can refer you to lenders who understand how to close jumbo transactions in this specific market, which matters because the seller's agent is going to evaluate your pre-approval letter as a credibility signal before they recommend an offer to their client. The timing infrastructure is simple. Begin the jumbo pre-approval process before you start touring properties. Not when you find something you want to offer on, but before you tour. The process takes 2 to 4 weeks in most cases, and you want the letter in hand when you identify a property you want to purchase. In the segments of this market that are still moving competitively, which are well-priced waterfront in Las Olas Isles, Harbor Beach, or Rio Vista, a pre-approval letter that is not yet issued when you want to make an offer is not a minor inconvenience. It's potentially the reason you lose the property to a buyer who's arrived prepared. The second step of this process is property search and evaluation. Public searches on Zillow, Realtor.com, and the MLS capture the listed inventory. In Fort Lauderdale's luxury waterfront segment, listed inventory is a meaningful but incomplete picture of what's actually available. Off-market offerings, properties made available through agent networks before or instead of public listing, represent a significant share of the most desirable product, particularly in Harbor Beach, Las Olas Isles, and Rio Vista. A buyer whose search is limited only to what appears on public platforms is not seeing the full market. This is another practical value of using a locally embedded agent with long-standing neighborhood relationships, access to inventory that does not exist publicly. The property evaluation process at the luxury level requires more than just comparing listing prices to comparable sales. In the waterfront segment specifically, the physical variables of the individual property, including canal width, water depth, seawall condition, dock capability, flood zone designation, and roof age, can vary dramatically between two properties at the same listed price in the same neighborhood, and can change the all-in cost of ownership by tens of thousands of dollars per year. Learning to evaluate these variables before you are emotionally committed to a specific property is the skill that separates buyers who make strong decisions from buyers who discover expensive surprises after closing. The honest instruction for this stage: let your agent drive the property selection based on your criteria rather than driving the search yourself through public platforms and presenting properties to your agent. An experienced agent knows which properties in your target range are genuinely well-priced, which listings may have issues that the photos don't reveal, and which sellers are motivated in ways that create negotiating opportunity. That intelligence is the primary value of the agent relationship in the search phase, and it's most effectively deployed when the agent is initiating rather than reacting.
Now, continuing down the list with step number 3, making an offer.
Florida real estate transactions generally use the FAR bar as-is residential contract as the standard form, the same contract used across the state, with specific terms negotiated between buyer and seller. As-is means the seller is not contractually obligated to repair anything the inspection reveals. It does not mean you cannot inspect. You absolutely can and should. It means the leverage from the inspection comes in the form of price negotiation or contract termination, not repair demands. Out-of-state buyers who are accustomed to presenting repair lists after inspections need to reframe their thinking before they enter this market. The earnest money deposit in Fort Lauderdale's luxury market is typically 10% of the purchase price, held in escrow with the title company that the buyer chooses. This deposit is fully refundable during the inspection period. If you elect to terminate within the inspection period, the deposit returns to you. After the inspection period ends, the deposit is typically non-refundable and at risk if you terminate without a valid contractual basis. Understanding exactly when the inspection period expires and what your termination rights are within it is one of the first conversations to have with your agent when the contract is executed. The offer price decision requires current comparable sales data, not asking price comparisons. Your agent should be willing to pull closed sales, not list prices, but closed prices in the immediate vicinity of the property, weighted towards the most recent transactions, and giving you a clear opinion of value before you determine your offer price. In the segments of the Fort Lauderdale luxury market where days on market have extended, non-waterfront product above $1.5 million, condos in buildings with unresolved documentation, there is real room between ask and close. In the segments that are still competitive, well-priced deep water waterfront properties in the core neighborhoods, the room is narrower and the strategy needs to reflect that. The offer terms beyond price matter in ways buyers sometimes underestimate. The length of the inspection period, the closing date, the financing contingency terms, the escrow deposit amount. Sellers evaluate all of these when reviewing an offer, particularly in situations where multiple offers exist or where the seller has a specific time frame requirement. An offer that is $50,000 below asking with a 45-day closing and a 15-day inspection period may be more competitive than a full-priced offer with contingencies that create uncertainty. Your agent should be advising on the full term structure of your offer, not just the price.
And real quickly, if you're seriously looking at buying a home here in Fort Lauderdale, I've put together a great resource for you. It's called the Fort Lauderdale Homebuyer Guide. Inside, you're going to find information on different neighborhoods and price points, what to buy, what to consider, and how to move here without second guessing yourself. It's completely free and you can download it at the link in the description. Moving forward, step number 4, the inspection period.
The general home inspection is the foundation. A licensed Florida home inspector evaluating the structure, the systems, the roof, the electrical, the plumbing, and the mechanical components of the property. At the luxury level, general inspectors who specialize in larger and more complex homes are worth engaging over generalists. The scope of a 5,000 square foot waterfront estate with a pool, a dock, and complex HVAC systems requires experience with that level of property. The seawall inspection is non-negotiable for any waterfront purchase. A licensed marine contractor or seawall specialist evaluates the seawall condition, checking for bowing, cracking, soil erosion beyond the wall, cap integrity, and the remaining service life. Seawall replacement on a Fort Lauderdale waterfront property runs $25,000 to $60,000 or much more depending on the linear footage and material. A seawall that is approaching the end of its life expectancy is a negotiating item of real significance. And it's an item that a general home inspector is usually not qualified to assess. The 4-point inspection covering the roof, electrical, plumbing, and HVAC systems is required by most Florida insurers before they will bind a homeowner's policy. The inspection is often conducted simultaneously with the general inspection, but it's a separate document that goes to your insurance carrier. The results of the 4-point inspection directly affect your insurability and your premium amount. A roof that fails the 4-point inspection or electrical systems that raise insurer concerns need to be understood before the inspection period closes. Wind mitigation inspection documents the hurricane-resistant features of the home, including impact windows, the roof covering type, roof attachment method, the roof shape, the open opening protection, and produces a report that your insurer uses to calculate your insurance premium for hurricanes. Homes with full impact glass, hip roofs, and documented hurricane straps get meaningfully lower wind premiums than homes without these features. The wind mitigation report can save buyers thousands of dollars per year in insurance costs if the results are strong, or reveal premium exposure if the features are not present. The flood zone verification and elevation certificate confirm the FEMA flood zone designation of the specific property, not the neighborhood generally, but the specific parcel, and document the elevation of the lowest floor relative to base floor elevation. This determines your mandatory flood insurance requirement and your flood insurance premium amount. Two properties on the same street can be in a different flood zone and have different elevation certificates and meaningfully different flood insurance costs. Always verify both documents independently during the inspection period rather than relying on what the seller or listing agent reports. For condo purchases, by state law, you have 7 days from full receipt to review the condominium documents, including the milestone structural inspection report, the structural integrity reserve study, the special assessment history, the HOA financial statements, and the rules and regulations. Your agent will obtain these from the listing agent and help you review them and get your questions answered, but you must be an active participant in understanding what these documents say, particularly on the reserve funding status and any pending or anticipated assessments.
And heading on to step number 5 in the process, title and closing.
The title search confirms that the seller has clear and marketable title to the property, that there are no liens, encumbrances, judgments, or ownership disputes that would affect your ability to take clean ownership. In a standard transaction, this is a routine process. In transactions involving estate sales, properties that have been through multiple transfers, or properties with complex ownership structures, including LLC-held properties, which are common in the Fort Lauderdale luxury market, the title search can reveal complications that require resolution before closing. Owner's title insurance protects you against title defects that arise after closing, claims that were not discovered in the title search, errors in public records, or subsequent challenges to your ownership. In a Florida real estate transaction, owner's title insurance is not optional from a risk management perspective, regardless of how clear the title appears at closing. The premium is a one-time cost at closing, and it protects your ownership indefinitely. The closing itself can happen remotely in Florida. You do not need to be physically present. Documents are sent to you for review. You sign through a remote notary in your home state, and funds are wired. Most out-of-state buyers close their Fort Lauderdale luxury purchases without returning to the city before the inspection trip and moving day. This is the standard practice, and the title companies that handle luxury transactions in this market are experienced with remote closings. The closing costs in a Florida luxury transaction typically run 1.5% to 2.5% of the purchase price for the buyer, covering title insurance, title search, recording fees, prorated property taxes, prepaid insurance, and lender fees if financed. Your title company will provide a closing disclosure several days before closing that itemizes every cost. Review it carefully and raise any questions before closing day, not at the closing table. The funding and recording process completes the transaction. Once your wire arrives at the title company and is confirmed, the deed records in the Broward County Public Records, and you are the owner of record. Keys are typically released at funding, which can happen the same day in most cases. For an out-of-state buyer, this means coordinating key pickup with your agent or the title company if you are not physically present on closing day.
And that takes us to the end of this video about my process in buying a luxury home. If you would like to work with me directly, you can contact me. All of my information is below.